Liotta's own story begins far from Hollywood. He was adopted as an infant and raised in Union, New Jersey. His father owned a local auto parts store. His mother was a town clerk.
1 year ago, Hollywood lost a legend. Ray Liotta.
We ran everything. We paid off cops, we paid off lawyers, we paid off judges. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking.
The unforgettable face of Goodfellas was suddenly gone. But what if the story we heard back then wasn't the whole story? Behind the fame, the iconic roles, and that chilling on-screen presence were secrets few people ever talked about. Now, a year later, former colleagues, insiders, and friends are starting to speak. And what they're revealing is raising serious questions. Was there more going on in Liotta's life than fans ever knew? Why are these details only coming out now? And what truths stayed buried until after his death? Because the deeper you look into Ray Liotta's final chapter, the more unsettling it becomes. Orphaned Beginnings. Long before the fame, the awards, and the unforgettable roles, the life of Ray Liotta began with a mystery that would follow him for decades. He was born Raymond Allen Liotta on December 18, 1954, in Newark, New Jersey. But almost immediately after birth, something heartbreaking happened. His biological parents left him at an orphanage. No explanations, no clues, just silence. For a baby who had barely entered the world, the story already carried a shadow. At just 6 months old, Ray was adopted by Alfred and Mary Liotta. Alfred worked as a town clerk and also owned an auto parts store, while Mary was a homemaker. They raised Ray in Union, New Jersey, a quiet working-class town where life was simple and steady. The couple also adopted another child from the same orphanage, Ray's sister, Linda. Their home wasn't wealthy or glamorous, but it was stable, loving, and supportive. Still, one question always lingered in the background. Ray knew from a young age that he was adopted. His parents didn't hide it from him, but knowing the truth didn't make the confusion disappear. Years later, in interviews, Liotta admitted that the question stayed with him throughout his life.
Now, my parents told me I was adopted, me, Ray, I think they told me I did a report about it in kindergarten, did a show and tell thing.
It wasn't anger directed at the people who raised him. It was something deeper, an emptiness that never fully explained itself. That feeling quietly shaped the way he saw the world. Growing up, Ray attended Union High School and graduated in 1973. At the time, acting wasn't even on his radar. He played sports, especially basketball, and spent most of his time doing the things regular teenagers did. There was no drama club spotlight, no early sign that Hollywood was waiting for him. In fact, many classmates later said he seemed like a regular kid trying to figure out where he fit in. And that's exactly what he was doing, searching for identity. Psychologists often say children who grow up with adoption questions develop what's called an outsider mentality. They feel like they're observing the world from the edges rather than standing firmly inside it. For Liotta, that feeling may have become fuel. Years later, in the 1980s, he reportedly spoke during therapy sessions about buried anger and frustration that had built up over time. Instead of letting it consume him, he began channeling those emotions into something powerful, his acting. That raw intensity would later explode onto movie screens. But before any of that happened, Ray still had to find his direction. After high school, he didn't have a clear plan. College seemed like the safest step forward, so he enrolled at the University of Miami. Interestingly, he wasn't interested in typical academic majors like math or history. Those subjects felt distant and uninspiring. What caught his attention instead was the drama program. During his freshman year, something clicked. Acting gave him something he had never experienced before, a place to release emotions that had been locked away for years. On stage, he could express anger, fear, confidence, or vulnerability without explaining himself. That discovery changed everything. And quietly, another side of Ray's personality started to form during those early years. Even as a teenager back in New Jersey, he occasionally volunteered at small local charity events and food drives. They weren't public acts, and no cameras followed him. But those small moments planted the early seeds of something important: his future support for adoption-related causes. So while Hollywood would later see Ray Liotta as the intense actor with the piercing stare, the truth is, his story began much earlier, with abandonment, unanswered questions, and a young man slowly learning how to turn pain into purpose. And as the years moved forward, that emotional fire would soon lead him to the role that changed everything: the first flickers. Before the intense movie roles and the cold stare that made audiences nervous, Ray Liotta was doing something most fans would never expect. He was singing, dancing, and performing in college musicals.
I got called back, and you had to sing and dance. The only time in a play that I saw in high school, from New Jersey, was Pippin.
After studying at the University of Miami, Liotta graduated in 1978 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting. At the time, he wasn't known for playing dangerous characters or crime bosses. Instead, he performed in stage productions like Cabaret and Oklahoma, roles that required him to sing, dance, and fully embrace theatrical storytelling. Those performances helped him develop something important: confidence on stage and the ability to disappear into a character. Even then, classmates noticed his intensity. When Ray stepped into a role, he committed completely. But graduating from college didn't automatically open Hollywood's doors. After earning his degree, Liotta moved to New York City, hoping to turn his acting dream into a real career. Like many young actors, the early days were difficult. Auditions were unpredictable, rejection came often, and paying rent became a constant worry. To survive, Ray worked as a bartender in theaters owned by the Schubert Organization. Night after night, he served drinks to people attending Broadway shows, the same type of performances he hoped to be part of someday. He was close to the entertainment world, but still on the outside looking in. Those long nights gave him time to think about his future and whether he truly belonged in the industry. Then, his first real opportunity arrived. In 1978, Liotta landed a role on the NBC daytime soap opera Another World. He was cast as Joey Perini, a kind-hearted romantic character who quickly became popular with viewers. Joey Perini was gentle, charming, and emotionally open, the exact opposite of the intense men Liotta would later portray in movies like Goodfellas. For 3 years, from 1978 to 1981, Liotta appeared regularly on the show, gaining recognition and a steady paycheck for the first time in his career. That stability meant everything. For a young actor who had been struggling in New York, the soap opera gave him financial breathing room and industry exposure. But it also came with a problem. Soap operas often label actors quickly, and once the audience sees you a certain way, it can be hard to break free. Producers and casting directors began to view Liotta as the nice guy type, the romantic lead who played sweet, emotional characters. While that image helped him early on, it also started to feel limiting. Years later, Liotta appeared on The Bonnie Hunt Show.
So we're back with Ray Liotta. You know, it's interesting. I'm just bringing this back up because we were talking about in the first segment that you play a lot of these tough guys.
Where producers surprised him by showing clips from his Another World days. Watching his younger self on screen made him laugh. He joked that he looked almost unrecognizable compared to the roles he became famous for later. Behind the scenes, Liotta was still dealing with deeper personal struggles. The questions surrounding his adoption never fully disappeared. Even while his career was beginning to grow, he sometimes wrestled with doubts about his identity and where he truly belonged. Personal writings from that period later revealed moments of confusion and frustration, showing how the emotional weight of his childhood experiences stayed with him into adulthood. Instead of letting those feelings hold him back, Liotta started channeling them into his craft. Acting became a way to release emotions he had carried for years. That raw honesty would later become one of his greatest strengths on screen. Audiences might not have known the details of his past, but they could sense the authenticity in his performances. During this time in New York, another side of Liotta quietly developed. While continuing his acting work, he occasionally volunteered at youth centers and orphanages in the city. These visits were never publicized and rarely discussed later in interviews. He simply spent time talking with children who had experienced uncertainty similar to his own. Looking back, those small acts hinted at something deeper, a personal connection to adoption that would influence his life long after his acting career took off. Even with the success of Another World, Liotta knew he couldn't stay in the soap opera world forever. The scripts felt repetitive, and the roles didn't challenge him the way he wanted. He began using his earnings to take additional acting classes, hoping to sharpen his skills and prepare for bigger opportunities. It was a risky decision to aim higher in such a competitive industry, but Liotta believed he had more to offer than the nice guy image people expected. Breaking through barriers. By 1981, Ray Liotta had reached a pivotal crossroads. His tenure on Another World had ended, leaving him with experience but no major breakthroughs. Rather than settling into a steady, predictable life in New York, he took a bold leap, moving to Los Angeles. Hollywood promised fame, fortune, and opportunity, but it was also notorious for breaking hopeful actors who weren't prepared for its cutthroat nature. Thousands flocked to the city each year, all chasing the same roles, and very few actually succeeded. The first years in LA were a grind. Liotta landed small television roles, appearing in the short-lived Casablanca series and taking guest spots on Saint Elsewhere. These gigs didn't make him famous. They barely paid the bills, but they kept him visible and gave him a foothold in the industry. Still, approaching his 30th birthday, he often felt stuck, as he candidly described in later interviews. Money was tight, requiring odd jobs between roles. For someone who had always been on the fringes, this was a reminder of how unpredictable and harsh Hollywood could be. In the midst of this struggle, Liotta sought out training to sharpen his craft. He enrolled in the classes of respected acting coach Harry Mastro George, a decision that would prove transformative. The classes were intense and demanding, pushing students to mine their own lives for raw, authentic emotion. Among his classmates were future stars like Kevin Costner, Stephen Bauer, and Melanie Griffith, creating an environment charged with ambition and talent. For Liotta, the exercises were both cathartic and revealing. He began channeling the anger, confusion, and sense of abandonment from his childhood into his performances. It was in these classes that he cultivated the intensity that would later define his on-screen presence. While other actors relied on charm or conventional technique, Liotta tapped into the chaos inside him, transforming personal pain into professional power. The suppressed rage from adoption, the sense of being an outsider, and the quiet insecurity he had carried for decades suddenly became his greatest asset. Opportunity struck in 1986 with the dark comedy thriller Something Wild, directed by Jonathan Demme. Melanie Griffith, impressed with Liotta's dedication in class and his raw energy, recommended him for the role of Ray Sinclair, the abusive ex-husband opposite Jeff Daniels. The part demanded a balance of charm and menace, someone who could seem normal one moment and terrifying the next. Liotta brought explosive intensity to the audition, refusing to hold back. He tapped into emotions he had long buried, using personal experience as fuel for the character. The casting directors were reportedly stunned by the performance. When the film hit theaters, Liotta's work stood out immediately. Critics praised his electrifying debut, and the role earned him a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. For the first time, Hollywood saw him not as the sweet soap opera actor from New York, but as a performer capable of commanding a scene with raw, unpredictable power. It was the moment his career pivoted, where the industry realized that Liotta could deliver intensity and authenticity like few others. Reflecting later, Liotta admitted that Ray Sinclair allowed him to explode in ways he hadn't been able to before. It was more than acting. It was emotional release. Therapy notes from the period, shared in posthumous family reflections, indicate that he often drew on childhood memories, revisiting feelings of abandonment and frustration, and pouring them into the character. The result was unforgettable, a performance that resonated with audiences and critics alike, one that hinted at the darker, more complex roles he would tackle in the future. Even amid this professional breakthrough, Liotta quietly continued his philanthropy. Reports indicate that he began donating to adoption agencies in Florida and New Jersey during this period. These acts were entirely unpublicized but significant, showing a side of him deeply connected to his own past trauma. The money wasn't about publicity. It was about giving back, about making sure that other children could have opportunities and support that he had lacked. These donations, modest but meaningful, hinted at a lifelong pattern of turning personal pain into purpose. The success of Something Wild didn't mean Hollywood was easy. Liotta faced continued competition, typecasting threats, and the unpredictable nature of the industry. Yet, the breakthrough demonstrated his resilience and hinted at the depth of talent that would later solidify his legendary status. Hollywood's doors had cracked open for him, and Liotta was ready to step through, armed with intensity, determination, and a fire that could not be ignored. Soon, bigger, more defining roles awaited him, roles that would cement his place in cinematic history, shaping not only the characters he played, but the way audiences would remember the raw, compelling energy that Ray Liotta brought to every screen he touched. This period of struggle, training, and breakthrough laid the foundation for the iconic performances that would follow, marking the start of a career defined by both vulnerability and power, intensity and compassion, a duality that would become his hallmark, the role that defined him. By the late 1980s, Ray Liotta had made a conscious decision. He would not be boxed into the tough guy stereotype that Hollywood was eager to assign. After the explosive energy of Something Wild, he deliberately sought roles that highlighted his versatility, proving he could play characters with warmth, subtlety, and emotional depth. In Dominic and Eugene, he portrayed a caring, protective brother, a role that allowed him to display tenderness without losing the charisma that had become his hallmark. Then came Field of Dreams, where Liotta embodied the legendary shoeless Joe Jackson, capturing the ethereal, almost otherworldly quality of a man suspended between myth and history. These choices weren't just strategic. They were Liotta's statement that he could own a spectrum of humanity, and that Hollywood would need to respect that range. Yet beneath these nice guy roles, Scorsese had already noticed the spark that would ignite Liotta's defining performance. Martin Scorsese, a director notorious for spotting intensity in actors others overlooked, saw Something Wild and immediately recognized a rawness, a fire that demanded a larger canvas. Their first encounter at the Venice Film Festival is now the stuff of legend. Liotta restrained himself from punching a producer who blocked Scorsese's path, an act of composure that impressed the director. That single moment, a mixture of restraint, courage, and intensity, cemented Scorsese's desire to cast him. Hollywood may have been filled with agents and gatekeepers, but Liotta bypassed all of them, confronting studio executive Barry Winkler face-to-face to secure the role of Henry Hill in what would become Goodfellas. His persistence and fearlessness were unmistakable. He refused to let bureaucracy or ego stand between him and the opportunity to channel his full intensity. Filming Goodfellas, however, was anything but easy. Halfway through production, Liotta's mother, Mary, passed away from cancer. The emotional weight could have derailed him, but instead, he channeled his grief directly into his performance. Scenes such as Henry Hill's iconic phone booth breakdown were imbued with authenticity, the raw, personal pain turning the fictional story into something visceral for audiences. This blending of personal loss with professional craft created a performance that was both electric and haunting, a window into Liotta's own tumultuous inner world. Psychological analyses of his acting note that his adoption trauma and unresolved anger toward his biological parents gave him a particular edge, perfectly aligning with Henry Hill's volatility. Liotta's commitment to realism extended beyond emotional truth. He meticulously studied Henry Hill's interviews to capture speech patterns, gestures, and cadence, though direct meetings were impossible due to Hill's placement in witness protection. On set, improvisation became a crucible for authenticity. During one scene, co-star Chuck Lowe accidentally split Liotta's lip during a spontaneous movement, a minor injury that Liotta kept in the final cut, adding an undeniable sense of danger and immediacy to the film. Furthermore, Scorsese included real mob associates as extras, many related to Joe Pesci through his Uncle Rouse, enhancing the immersive atmosphere of the crime world. These details, minor to outsiders, created a texture of realism that defined the film and gave Liotta's performance an edge that could not be replicated. The success of Goodfellas was immediate and sweeping. Critics lauded Liotta's work as electrifying, and audiences were captivated by the intensity, nuance, and unpredictability he brought to Henry Hill. It was the role of a lifetime, he later admitted, a statement that understated just how much of himself he poured into the character. Behind the acclaim, however, lay personal cost. The emotional labor of revisiting grief, anger, and unresolved childhood trauma made the role exhausting and occasionally frustrating for the filmmakers around him. Directors reported being challenged by his intensity, yet it was precisely that raw power that immortalized the film and cemented Liotta's place in cinematic history. Off-camera, Liotta's quiet acts of philanthropy and mentorship continued, even amid the Goodfellas frenzy.
The Goodfellas star died in his sleep in the Dominican Republic where he was shooting a movie. Liotta recently had a resurgence with roles in Marriage Story.
Though the industry saw only his on-screen ferocity, he was simultaneously giving back, donating anonymously to adoption agencies, and quietly advising young actors who struggled to navigate Hollywood's unforgiving terrain. These gestures, invisible to the public eye, reflect a man who transformed personal adversity into both art and action, shaping not just characters, but lives. Peaks and pitfalls. The 1990s and early 2000s marked a period of both triumph and turbulence for Ray Liotta, a man whose career soared while personal intensity often rubbed the Hollywood establishment the wrong way. After the explosive success of Goodfellas, Liotta deliberately diversified his roles, taking on lighter fare to showcase his range. Films like No Escape, a taut action thriller, and Heartbreakers, a romantic caper, allowed him to step away from the shadows of gangster personas and explore a broader emotional spectrum. Yet even in these lighter roles, his reputation for off-camera intensity preceded him. Directors and co-stars would recount anecdotes of Liotta's piercing stare during rehearsals, a look so intense it could freeze an entire room. While some found this unnerving, it was a tool he wielded consciously, a way of channeling his inner drive and childhood trauma into a presence impossible to ignore. In an industry often dominated by calculated charm, Liotta's authenticity bordered on disruptive, a reminder that raw talent can unsettle as much as it captivates. Despite his professional successes, a series of career regrets haunted Liotta, shaping a complex portrait of the man behind the roles. He famously declined to audition for the 1989 Batman film, dismissing the idea as silly, a decision he later reflected on with a mixture of amusement and wistfulness. Similarly, he passed on the opportunity to play Ralph Cifaretto in The Sopranos, intentionally avoiding yet another mafia role that could typecast him. While these decisions were strategic, they came with costs. Liotta never collaborated with Martin Scorsese again, missing out on seminal projects like The Departed and The Irishman. Critics and fans alike sometimes lamented these absences, but for Liotta, maintaining integrity and resisting typecasting outweighed the allure of high-profile returns. During this period, he also courted controversy with candid praise for Woody Allen, calling him a genius, even amid the director's highly publicized personal scandals. Such statements, while honest reflections of artistic admiration, drew backlash in an era increasingly attuned to celebrity accountability. Not every choice landed successfully. The Identical was widely criticized, with reviewers citing miscasting and uneven performances. For Liotta, it was a rare misstep in an otherwise carefully curated career, but it served as a reminder that even seasoned actors face unpredictability in Hollywood. The high-stakes nature of his career, balancing opportunity, artistic integrity, and personal demons, meant that every role carried weight, both creatively and emotionally. Behind the scenes, Liotta's decision-making was informed by years of self-reflection and psychological insight, turning apparent setbacks into lessons for his craft and for those around him. Amid these professional peaks and pitfalls, a largely untold aspect of Liotta's legacy emerges: his mentorship influence. From the 1990s through the 2000s, he conducted informal acting classes in Los Angeles, guiding emerging talent with the same intensity that defined his performances. His philosophy emphasized what he called raw vulnerability, the ability to mine personal pain for authenticity on screen. This approach resonated deeply with younger actors and left an imprint on major productions. Robert De Niro, speaking at 2023 panels honoring the Irishman cast, credited Liotta directly. "Ray taught us to dig deep. He showed us that the truth of a scene comes from knowing yourself, your anger, your regret, your joy." By 2026, tributes highlighted how his teachings shaped the next generation of performers, proving that Liotta's influence extended far beyond the camera. His mentorship was a quiet yet profound legacy, demonstrating that even amid Hollywood's grind and the pressures of fame, he remained committed to fostering artistry in others. The hidden heart. Beneath the fiery intensity and tough guy persona that defined Ray Liotta on screen, there was a heart quietly shaping lives away from cameras and tabloids. In our exclusive storyline, we uncover his secret philanthropy, a side of Ray virtually unknown during his lifetime. Driven by the lingering trauma of his own orphaned beginnings, Liotta became a discreet benefactor for adoption agencies across New Jersey and Florida. From the 1990s through the 2010s, he made anonymous donations that, by estate records and foundation documents released posthumously in 2023, totaled an estimated $500,000 or more. These were not headline-grabbing gestures. They were purposeful acts, intended to give other children the opportunities he once yearned for but never had. Ray's generosity extended beyond checks. In the 2000s, he personally visited orphanages, spending time with children who had been abandoned or were navigating difficult family situations. Family and friends recall him sharing intimate stories from his own life, tales of rejection, adoption confusion, and the resilience he had forged through those early years. These trips were entirely unpublicized. Liotta wanted no fanfare, no spotlight. Therapy notes from the same period, later released by his family, revealed the psychological underpinnings. "Giving back to heal the boy I was," he wrote. The anger and confusion he carried over being abandoned by his biological parents had transformed into a quiet, empathetic force, allowing him to connect with and uplift those in similar circumstances. His philanthropy, largely invisible to the public eye, was amplified after his passing. Daughter Carson and ex-wife Michelle Grace spoke openly in interviews about the scale and impact of his giving. Programs funded by Ray's donations included counseling services for adopted children, mentorship initiatives, and scholarships that allowed teens to explore creative outlets, mirroring the escape Ray had found in acting. What emerges from this new insight is a narrative arc that frames Liotta not merely as a Hollywood star, but as a man channeling pain into purpose, a hero whose unseen kindness shaped countless lives. Death and tributes. Ray Liotta's life reached its final act on May 26, 2022, in the Dominican Republic while filming Dangerous Waters. He was discovered peacefully in his sleep by his fiancée, JC Nitolo. There were no signs of struggle or foul play, yet the suddenness of his passing shocked the entertainment world. The body was quickly repatriated, giving family and friends the opportunity to grieve and honor his legacy on home soil. For a man who had spent decades channeling emotional intensity into his performances, the quiet nature of his death seemed both ironic and haunting, a stark contrast to the explosive energy he brought to characters like Henry Hill. Tributes flowed immediately. Martin Scorsese described him as a courageous, daring actor whose depth and unpredictability brought life to every scene, particularly in Goodfellas. Fans flooded social media, sharing memories of Liotta's unforgettable performances and the ways his roles had touched them. Posthumous releases, including Cocaine Bear, became bittersweet reminders of his talent, providing audiences with one last glimpse of his magnetic presence. In February 2023, his daughter Carson unveiled Liotta's Hollywood Walk of Fame star, a moving acknowledgement of a career that had left indelible marks on cinema. Autopsy Revelations. A year after his death, the veil of speculation lifted with the release of Ray Liotta's autopsy report in 2023, revealing the ultimate secret behind his sudden passing. He had succumbed to acute heart failure, respiratory insufficiency, and pulmonary edema caused by atherosclerosis, a buildup of plaque in the arteries over time. These natural, non-violent conditions explained the shocking nature of his death, confirming what friends and family suspected but could not fully understand. The report tied his passing to long-standing lifestyle factors. Liotta had smoked in the 1980s, a detail corroborated in interviews and public accounts from that decade. Combined with years of grueling filming schedules, emotional intensity from carrying personal trauma into roles, and occasional stress from career regrets, these factors created a perfect storm for his heart condition. Unlike the explosive on-screen characters he embodied, the enemy was quiet, silent, and internal, an ironic twist for someone who had spent decades portraying danger and volatility in vivid detail. This revelation brought closure to fans and historians alike. The speculation that had swirled for months, rumors of foul play, hidden illnesses, or even mysterious circumstances on set, was laid to rest. Yet, the autopsy also humanized Liotta, reminding the world that behind the ferocious intensity and unflinching performances lay a vulnerable man, one shaped by abandonment, grief, and empathy. Ray Liotta's hidden life is finally revealed, including his personal struggles, secret philanthropy, and the real stories behind his iconic roles. Want more untold Hollywood secrets and shocking revelations? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss any exclusive stories from the lives of your favorite stars.